If you look up this name today, you'll probably see an anime character, an RPG game boss, or some powerful general from a fantasy book. For today's gamer, he's a cool boss fight. For a medieval magician, he was the first and the highest king of hell, commanding 66 legions of spirits. Hello? My name is Moon and welcome to the first episode of a new series where we're going to break down the entire hierarchy of the 72 spirits of the Ars Goetia. Forget those shallow internet articles that just copy-paste 3 sentences from Wikipedia. Today we are going to look at how the highest ancient god who controlled lightning and rain became a 3-headed creature locked up in a medieval spellbook. We have to start our journey about 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, in the dusty but super rich cities of ancient Canaan or Phoenicia, a place where this name didn't bring fear of damnation, but pure hope that you wouldn't die of thirst tomorrow. If you walk through the streets of the ancient port of Ugarit or later on the walls of famous Carthage and heard people chanting the name Bael, nobody would start ripping their clothes off or begging for an exorcism. You see, in Semitic languages, the word Baal didn't originally mean a specific horned monster. It was a respected social and religious title that literally translates to lord, ruler, owner, or even husband. When a Canaanite woman talked to her husband at home, she could legitimately call him my Baal. Pure domestic hierarchy. But in a religious sense, there were dozens of different Baals, because every town had its own local lord. You had Baal Sidon, the lord of the city of Sidon, Baal Hazor, or the biblically famous Baal Peor. They were basically regional patrons. Plus, worshipping Baal wasn't just some blind local faith, it was a highly organized state business. In 2002, archaeologists finished excavating a place known as House of Urteno, who was a high-ranking diplomat in Ugarit. And they found over 600 clay tablets that worked like ritual receipts, basically. Neighbor kingdoms like the Hittites, Hittites? I don't know how to pronounce this. Let's say Hittites. Neighboring kingdoms like the Hittites or Cypriots would literally order prayers to Baal from the Ugaritians on invoice. If it wasn't raining somewhere in modern-day Turkey, the Hittite king would send gold and silver to Ugarit with a message saying, pay your priests to put an extra portion of bull fat on the altar for Baal, because we are having a drought. Baal worked like an international weather service. But when we talk about the main cosmic Baal, the one medieval times turned into demon number 1, we're talking about an entity named Baal Hadad, or just Hadad. And we know about him thanks to a breakthrough archaeological discovery in 1922. French archaeologists at a Syrian site called Ras Shamra, which is ancient Ugarit, dug up of a library of clay tablets written in Ugaritic cuneiform. These texts, known as the Baal cycle, showed us ancient mythology raw and unfiltered. In these texts, Baal had a fixed noble title, RKHB, RPT, which translates to the one who rides on the clouds, or the cloud rider. According to these tablets, Baal was the son of Dagon, the god of agriculture, even though an old passive god named El was considered the ultimate boss of the pantheon. But Baal didn't just inherit the throne for free. He had to fight hard for it in 2 brutal divine wars. His first rival was Yam, the god of the seas, chaos, the deep, and river currents. Yam wanted to rule the whole world and hold the other gods hostage as his slaves. The old god El gave in to him out of fear, but Baal stood up to him. At first, Baal was losing the fight because the power of the ocean was unimaginable. That's when the divine blacksmith Kotar va Cassis, kind of like a Middle Eastern Hephaestus, forged two magical weapons for Baal. Two ritual clubs named Yagrus, meaning driver, and Aimur, meaning chaser. These clubs basically worked like ancient guided missiles. They flew right out of Baal's hands by themselves. The first one hit Yam in the chest, and the second hit him right between the eyes. Baal chopped him to pieces, declared himself a king of the gods, and had a massive palace made of cedarwood, gold, and lapis lazuli built on the sacred Mount Safon, which is modern-day Jebel Akra on the border of Syria and Turkey. But right during the construction of this palace, the tablets record a really bizarre argument that shows even the powerful storm god was incredibly paranoid. The divine architect Kotar came to Baal with the blueprints and said, "Hey boss, I'm going to put huge windows in the palace so you can have a nice, beautiful view." But Baal started shouting at him like, "Are you crazy? No windows. Absolutely no windows." Why? Because Baal had a panic attack thinking that if he had windows in his palace, his arch-enemy Mot, the god of death, or the defeated Yam, would crawl through the window at night into his bedroom and slit his throat. He was also afraid his three beloved daughters, who represented atmospheric phenomena, first was Pidrai, the girl of light and lightning, Talai, the girl of dew and morning drizzle, and Arsai, the girl of the damp earth, so they would escape or be kidnapped through the windows. Kotar argued about the technical details with him for several tablets, but Baal stubbornly stood his ground. It was only later, when he completely locked down his power and realized the world was safe, that he went triumphantly to the architect and said, "All right, Kotar, you can open the windows." The exact second the windows of his palace opened, Baal roared. The first lightning bolts shot out of the windows. The sky ripped open and a massive rain fell. For the Canaanites, this ancient architectural argument was the logical explanations for why the storm at the end of the dry season was sometimes late. The god was just too scared to open his bedroom windows, basically. I love that. This mythical palace had a real-world reflection on Earth. On top of Mount Safon stood a massive sacred site. Major sanctuaries dedicated to Baal Hadad featured substantial stone architecture, often with massive stone walls, central roofed shrines, and upper roof terrace where rituals were held, alongside large outdoor open courtyards where sacrifices were offered so the smoke could rise directly into open sky. From ritual tablets, we also know the king of Ugarit had to personally climb Mount Safon once a year and perform a specialized cleanup ritual, literally scraping bird droppings off Baal's sacred open-air thrones so the god would not take offense and withhold the autumn rains. With his victory over Yam, Baal Hadad officially became the CEO of hydration and weather for the whole land. He was the god of storms, lightning, wind, and life-giving rain. On ancient reliefs, archaeologists find him despised as a strong warrior in a horn hamlet, holding a club in his right hand and a spear in his left, with lightning bolts branching out of it. If you look closely at those reliefs, you'll see something fascinating. The lightning isn't just drawn as destructive zigzag bolt. It depicts with leaves, branches, or plant sprouts growing right out of the electrical shafts. For the Canaanites, lightning wasn't just a weapon of mass destruction or an angry blast from the sky. It was literally a green seed of rain. They believed that wherever Baal's lightning struck, it fertilized the ground, soaked the soil with moisture, and commanded life and crops to sprout directly off the earth. But the Canaanite year had one nasty feature: a harsh Mediterranean summer. Every summer, a scorching drought hit the the land, and grass turned yellow. Crops dried out and rivers turned to dust, basically. And the Canaanites had a genius mythological explanations for this. It was Baal's second big fight, this time with a god named Mot, which literally translates to death. Mot was the ruler of the underworld, absolute drought, sterility and non-existence. According to the Baal cycle, Mot sent Baal an official invite to a feast in the underworld, where the main curse was mud, dust and rot. Baal, even though he was the mighty king of storms, got scared of Mot. He knew that in the end nobody escapes the underworld. But before he went down to the realm of the dead, he had to make sure the world wouldn't completely end. The descriptions of his crazy fertility go to such extremes here that later commentators translated them with astonishment. He turned into a wild bull and mated with a heifer dozens of times in a row to ensure that his divine essence remained on earth and that a successor wouldn't be born. The clay tablets also reveal how sneakily Baal tried to trick Mot. Before the gates of the underworld, he rubbed his real body with olive oil and ritual clay to look dead. But he only sent his energy ghost dressed in his clothes into the palace of death. But Mot saw through the trick and locked the real Baal up in the deepest cell. The exact second that happened, it stopped raining on earth, the clouds vanished, and a fatal, deadly drought set in. The highest god El started pouring ashes on his head as a sign of massive mourning, put on a sackcloth and ritually cut his cheeks with a knife until he bled. The world was saved by Baal's sister, who was also his lover, Anat, the goddess of war, hunting and wild passion. Anat was the absolute powerhouse of the pantheon, and all the other gods, including Old El, respected her big time. When she found out Baal was helpless in the underworld, she went straight to Mot and aggressively demanded his release. When Mot coldly refused, Anat went into a total rage. She grabbed the god of death, ritually chopped him into pieces with a sword, sifted him through a grain sieve, burned him in a huge fire, ground his bones in a mill, and scattered his burnt remains over a field as food for the birds. With this brutal ritual, Anat actually performed the first ever agriculture imitation of harvesting, milling, and sowing grain. Now, if you read some older 20th century books of sensational internet articles, you might hear a wide rumor that after defeating Mot, Anat performed an explicit sexual fertility ritual on Baal, spitting water into public wells to resurrect him. But modern Ugaritology and precise translations of these broken clay tablets have thoroughly debunked that erotic interpretation. Experts in ancient Semitic languages have clarified that the damaged text actually describes an intense ritual of purification, exorcism, and protection against evil spirits. Anat acts as a fear guardian who purifies the divine domain, clearing the way for Baal's restoration. Through her fierce intervention and the defeat of Mot, Baal was freed from the underworld. He rose from the dead, sat back on his throne on Mount Sapon, and pushed death back underground. The clouds immediately came back to the sky. It thundered for the first time in months. The first autumn rain fell, and the dried-up earth bloomed again. This cycle of dying, drought, divine intervention, and resurrection repeated every single year in the Middle East. If an ancient Canaanite wanted to keep Baal in a good mood, a simple Sunday prayer wasn't enough. Worshipping the storm god required a raw sensory show. The archives from Ugarit left us precise sacrificial calendars detailing offerings of fat, livestock, and wine. During major state festival, priests used ritual drums, flutes, and wine to achieve an ecstatic trance state. When the ritual hit its peak, the priests fell into a state of trance, spinning on the spot and uttering prophecies to mirror the wild, unpredictable power of the storm. To get Baal's attention during times of extreme drought, priests pulled out ritual blades. The Bible's first book of Kings describes this phenomenon vividly. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives, till the blood gushed out upon them. They believed that human blood running down the altar would compel Baal to send rain. During this intense ritual, priests played a narrow Phoenician flute called jingras, which produced a highly pitched, wailing tone that heightened the psychological intensity of the ceremony. Now we have to address one of the most famous and complex chapters associated with Western Phoenician religion, the terrifying name Moloch, and the historical debate surrounding child sacrifice. For centuries, classical historians claim that Moloch was a separate, monstrous god demanding a child sacrifice. But modern linguistic and epigraphy, pioneered by scholar Otto Eisfeld in 1935, revealed that the word Molk, written as MLK in Punic inscriptions, was primarily a technical legal term for a specific type of sacred vow or sacrificial rite, a promissory sacrifice. Furthermore, in the Western Phoenician colonies like Carthage, these small rites were dedicated not to Baal Hadad, the Ugaritic storm god, but to Baal Hammon, a distinct sun and fertility deity who became the chief god of Carthage and was later identified by the Romans with Saturn. While historians continue to debate whether Molech in the Hebrew Bible also referred to a specific deity worshipped in the Valley of Hinnom, archaeological finds at Carthaginian burial sites called Tophet have yielded thousands of urns containing incinerated infant and animal bones. Epigraphic evidence from stone stele documents different types of vows. Molk Baal, a noble sacrifice. Molk Adam, a human sacrifice of lower standing. And Molk Omor, a legal substitute where a lamb or kid goat were dressed and sacrificed in place of a child, as recorded on inscriptions stating that the deity accepted the soul of a lamb in a place of a human life. Forensic analysis of Tophet remains shows evidence of high temperature cremation, reflecting a grave, highly institutionalized state ritual performed during times of dire existential crisis. In Canaan, proper fertility rituals and community institutions were also central to Baal's worship. In Ugarit, there was a prominent social and religious institution called the Marzeach, an official ritual association of wealthy citizens dedicated to patrons like Baal or El. Tablets show that Marzeach groups owned property, vineyards, and meeting houses. They gathered for formal ritual feasts featuring music, sacrificed livestock, and heavy wine consumption, which was viewed as a sacred mechanism to commune with the divine and honor ancestors. These gatherings were so legendary for their excess that one mythic text humorously describes the elderly supreme god El drinking to such absolute intoxication at a divine banquet that he collapsed and his fellow gods had to carry him home. Worshipping Baal also included rituals honoring the dead, known as zikr, or the invocation of names. When a king died, priests sacrificed bull and rams to open the gates of the underworld, invoking the Rephaim, the heroic spirits of ancient kings and ancestral warriors. Priests poured libations of wine and blood into ritual libation pits carved into temple floors, seeking the protection and favor of these honored dead. When ancient Israelite tribes settled in Canaan, a fierce theological conflict emerged. The Israelites were committed to their covenant with Yahweh, while their Canaanite neighbors worshipped Baal for agrarian success, rain and harvest abundance. For many ancient Israelite farmers, the temptation to syncretize the two faiths was immense. The conflict was so deep that early Israelites even carried names incorporating Baal, not as a reference to a foreign demon, but using the word on its original sense as Lord. Later, biblical scribes systematically edited these names in the historical books to erase the association. For instance, King Saul's son Eshbaal, man of Baal, was edited in the second book of Samuel to Ishbosheth, man of shame. Similarly, Saul's grandson Merib Baal is my advocate, was renamed Mephibosheth, he who spreads shame. Scribes mechanically substituted the Hebrew word boshet, shame, for Baal to sanitize the royal lineages. The grandest confrontation between the two religions is recorded in the first book of Kings. King Ahab married the Phoenician princess Jezebel, daughter of King Edbaal of Tyre. Her original Phoenician name was Jezebel, which echoes the Ugaritic liturgical phrase Ze Baal, where is Prince Baal? A sacred slogan invoked during ritual searches for the storm god. Biblical writers subtly changed her name as Jezebel, creating a disparaging linguistic association for ancient Hebrew readers. The famous duel on Mount Carmel between the prophet Elijah and 450 priests of Baal turned into a dramatic trial of divine authority. When Baal's priests prayed, danced, and cut themselves from morning until afternoon without response, Elijah taunted them. In 1 Kings 18:27, Elijah mocks their silent God, telling them to shut louder. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or he's busy, or he's away on a journey. The Hebrew phrase translated as he is busy is a subtle polite idiom that ancient readers understood as a sarcastic suggestion that Baal might have stepped aside to attend to private needs or was simply unavailable. When Yahweh answered Elijah's prayer with fire, the crowd turned, and the priests of Baal were executed. This theological struggle wasn't just fought with words. It involved state-sponsored destruction of cult sites. In 2016, archaeologists excavating the ancient city gate of Lachish uncovered an 8th century BC shrine dedicated to localized worship. The altar's horns had been deliberately severed, and inside the Holy of Holies, King Hezekiah's reformers had installed a carved stone toilet seat directly over the sacred site. In ancient Near Eastern culture, physically converting an altar into a latrine was the ultimate ritual desecration, legally and spiritually decommissioning the shrine forever. But the most sophisticated tragedy of Israelite theological polemic wasn't just physical destruction, it was linguistic absorption. Once the Israelites established monotheism, biblical writers took Baal's grandest divine title and attributed it directly to Yahweh. In Ugaritic text, Baal's supreme poetic epithet was RKB, RPT, the cloud rider. In the Hebrew Bible, Psalm 68:4 commands believers to pray God who rides upon the clouds, using the exact word-for-word Hebrew cognate of that ancient Ugaritic title. The biblical authors intentionally reclaim the storm's God's proudest title for Yahweh. A second linguistic maneuver occurred with the deity of the Philistine city of Ekron. He was originally worshipped as Baal-zebul, meaning Lord of the High Abode, or Prince Baal. Israelite writers made a subtle mocking alteration to the final letter, changing Zebul to Zebub, the Hebrew word for fly. Thus, Baal-zebul was transformed into Baal-zebub, Lord of the Flies, a sarcastic reference to the swarms of insects attracted to open-air sacrificial meat. In post-biblical rabbinic Hebrew, the word was further punched with zebel, dung, basically. By the New Testament era, this degraded title had become synonymous with supreme demonic authority. In Matthew 12:24, critics accused Jesus of driving out demons by Baal-zebul, the prince of demons. The ancient Canaanite god of rain had been demoted over a millennium until his distorted name represented the chief adversary of heaven. Yet Baal-hadad's iconography survived in the Roman world. When Roman legions conquered the Near East, soldiers embraced Baal-hadad and integrated him with Roman religion as Jupiter. Roman military sculptures depict him as a commander in full armor, standing atop a raging bull while holding a lightning bolt and a double-headed battle axe. Roman legionaries carried his altars across the empire. Archaeologists have excavated shrines to Jupiter Dolichenius along the Danube River in Germany and Austria, and all the way to Hadrian's Wall in northern Britain. When formal demonologies were complied in early Christianity and the Renaissance, theologians assigned these ancient pagan names to the ranks of hell. Baal was cast as Bael, the first king of hell who commands 66 legions of spirits in the Ars Goetia. Early grimoire texts note that when Bael appears, he speaks with a hoarse, raspy voice. Historically, these details are tragic transformation. The majestic storm god whose voice once thundered across the sky had been reduced in medieval lore into a creepy, whispery demon trapped underground. In the 1651 English grimoire Lemegeton, the Lesser Key of Solomon, Baal is listed as spirit number 1, powerful king ruling over the East. In Renaissance magic, he was associated with the sun, requiring his sigil to be engraved in gold, and was said to grant invisibility and strategic wisdom to the practitioners. The famous visual form of Baal as a three-headed monster with spider legs is actually a 19th century artistic creation. In the original text of the Ars Goetia, Baal is described as appearing in various forms, sometimes like a cat, sometimes a toad, sometimes a man, or combinations thereof. In 1863, French illustrator Louis de Breton drew Baal for Colin de Plancy's Dictionnaire Infernal. Le Breton combined the three heads onto a single torso and added spider legs to unite the figure visually. This striking illustration became world famous, forever fixing Baal as a spider-like hybrid in modern pop culture. In 21st century, occult traditions like demonology practitioners view Baal not through medieval Christian fear, but as an ancient archetype of authority, protection, and leadership rooted in the ancient storm god. Modern ritual practices use meditative mantras known as ants, such as Ayer Secore on Ka Baal, to tune into his energy, treating invisibility metaphorically as privacy, boundary setting, and social discretion in a hyper-connected world. From a modern psychological perspective, the evolution of Baal reflects the human mind, processing uncertainty and crisis. Ancient societies personified the unpredictable weather as Baal-hadad to gain a sense of agency over their environment. When societies faced extreme existential threats, survival instincts produced intensive collective rituals. In monotheism rise, suppressed primal instincts were projected onto foreign gods, transforming them into symbols of corruptions like Beelzebub. Medieval magicians used ritual structure to engage the hidden aspects of their own psyches, while modern practitioners utilize these archetypes for personal empowerment and psychological resilience. Following the story of Baal means walking a 3,000-year path through human history. He transformed from a beloved storm god in Ugarit through biblical polemics and Roman military veneration to a medieval demon king, a 19th century artistic spider monster, and a modern psychological archetype. His legacy proves that the powerful symbols of human history rarely disappear. They simply evolve, carrying the echoes of ancient thunder into the modern world. Thank you for exploring this deep history with me today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, comment and subscribe for the next episode, where we continue analyzing the 72 spirits of Ars Goetia. And if you would like to support my channel even more, check out the join button to become a member. You'll get early access to videos and exclusive content made just for you. Appreciate all the love and see you in the next video.